Hello and welcome to today's European SharePoint Office 365 and Azure Community webinar. My name is Shane and I'm delighted to be joined by April Dunham, Microsoft United States, who will be talking to you today about power up your team's environment with low-code tools. Remember to join the conversation about today's webinar on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is ESPC20. Don't forget to check out the Resource Center. This is updated daily with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. Simply visit sharepointeurope.com and click the content link at the top. Welcome to Teams Week, where we have a variety of blogs, ebooks, and webinars, all free and all online. Check out sharepointeurope.com for full details of upcoming webinars. After the webinar, we will have a questions and answers session. Type any questions you have in the questions window. Questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation. And now I'm going to pass you over to our webinar presenter, April Dunham. Hello, April.
Hey Shane, thanks for having me. Excited to be here for Teams Week. All right, so let's get the screen share going. All right, you able to see my slides okay?
Yeah, take it away, April.
Great, thanks. So today for Teams Week, what I wanted to talk with you all about is how you can power up your Teams environment with low-code tools. A little bit about me, for those of you who don't know me. My name is April Dunham. I'm a partner technical architect at Microsoft. Been here a year now. And I was, before joining, an MVP in the business app space, so Power Apps and Power Automate specifically. And I'm an active blogger, YouTuber, and speaker. So if you're interested in learning more about what I have to say about the Power Platform and Teams and SharePoint, you can go to my blog, sharepointsiren.com, and that's a link to my YouTube channel where I have lots of videos on the Power Platform and Teams. So first, let's talk about why we would want to use Teams and low-code tools within Teams specifically. Obviously, the momentum and the use case of Teams, it's one of the fastest growing business applications in Microsoft history. So you've probably seen these stats before in other presentations, but there's over 115 million daily active Teams users was the latest figure that Jeff Teeper announced there, and it's used by more than 500,000 organizations. 93% of the Fortune 100 companies use Teams also. And it's all over the world in many different markets and languages and organizations of all sizes. So it kind of makes sense where most of your you are already in Teams and that's where you're doing your day-to-day operations, that we should embrace low-code technologies and bring that into Teams to bring even more power to where you are right now doing your work. So I wanted to first set the stage for, if we look at just Teams by itself, what are our options as far as Teams as an application platform? So the Teams platform itself is really built for flexibility. So there are 6 main areas where we can customize Teams from a platform experience. The first area is tabs. So when you think of a tab in Teams, it's really just a big canvas that hosts your UI. So you're really just taking, whether it's a web page or a SharePoint page, whatever it might be, a dashboard, and you're hosting that as an iframe inside of a tab so that your users and yourself can easily access that without having to navigate away from Teams. Bots are a big one. So when you think about Teams, you might have seen several demos and be really familiar with the bot aspect. So it's a great way within Teams to drive engagement in a channel or even in one-on-one conversations. So, rather than say maybe having a form or having to go look something up, you can have a really great one-on-one conversational scenario going on with a bot to return information. Messaging extensions are another great use case for extension within Teams. So those enable you to share these actionable cards that can grab people's attention and do simple jobs without leaving the conversation that you're in inside of Teams. So, for example, if you needed to look up information about a project that you're talking about, you can have a messaging extension that could share a card, and you can look that up directly in the chat to a user. Then we have message actions. So this is a good way to interpret a chat. So this is kind of the starting place, is a conversation in these. So it lets your users send text to an app, and you can use that to create things and add to existing entities. Then we have task modules. So say, for example, you're using a bot within Teams, or maybe you have a tab. With these task modules, you can do things like lookups or an entry within dialogues inside of those tabs or bots. And then finally, notifications. So with one of the things in the power of Teams is you can really almost displace your email use in a way when you're using Teams. So you can have quick one-on-one chats and answer things. And one of the ways to do that to get notified is these notification systems to get the user's attention. So we can @mention people, and that we can either @mention and post to the channel so that a group of people can see that. We can have one-on-one chats and get notifications on those, or group chats and get notifications. So those are all the areas as far as Teams as a platform that we're able to add in and customize some functionality here. In a minute, when we talk about low code, I'll talk about how there's some synergies with that with the Power Platform. So, and then one other thing to consider here is with Teams, there's kind of two different audiences that it's built for. It's built for groups and it's built for individuals. So at its core, Teams is all about collaboration. So the scope, it puts your app where the action is. Teams is really the hub for all of work in, giving you these channels and these teams where you can collaborate with different team members, and it really encourages sharing. So that's one use case. But then there's another use case of the individual, the personal scope. So you can have personal applications for a user that someone can use, such as maybe a support conversational bot or something along those lines, and then one-on-one chats and bots. So when you're considering integrations and building on top of the Teams platform, consider those two different groups that we have to target to. So this talk is all about, well, how can we leverage low code to kind of bring value to your Teams environment? And when we talk about low code within the Microsoft stack, we're talking about the Power Platform. So Power Platform is a suite of tools, a low code platform that spans across Office 365, Azure, Dynamics, and standalone apps. There's 4 main components of the Power Platform that we'll be talking about. First, there's Power BI, which is the rich business analytics tool. So you can create dashboards and reports with that. Then there's Power Apps, which is a low-code rapid application development tool within the Power Platform. Then we have Power Automate. So typically any form or application you build needs some kind of business logic and automation. So that's where Power Automate comes into play. You can have that rich process automation. And then the newest kid on the block in the Power Platform is Power Virtual Agents, which enables you to create intelligent virtual agents, low-code chatbots. So we have all of these great pieces of technology at our disposal as part of Microsoft's Power Platform. All of this sits on top of what used to be known as the Common Data Service, but is now Microsoft Dataverse. And so all of that data is stored on top of here, and we're able to leverage things like data connectors. So that's kind of the building blocks of the Power Platform. We have this rich repository of over 400 different data connectors to various SaaS services in the cloud. So if, for example, you need to connect to Salesforce, we don't have to go and custom develop that connection model. We can just utilize the data connector for Salesforce that's already available to us, add that into our app or our flow or a virtual agent, whatever it might be, and consume that easily. And where this really becomes powerful is, we have those 400 different connectors that are just already built and ready for us. But on top of that, we have the capability to create our own custom connectors as well. So this could be if you have, say, a system that you're using internally, and as long as that system has an API, a RESTful API, we're able to create a custom connector to call and consume data from that service. So really, really powerful. And another big functionality and piece of this Power Platform is AI Builder. So, we all know that we can use things like Azure Cognitive Services if we're, developers. We can create services for, AI, so like facial recognition and forms processing and all of that. But if you are wanting to utilize a low-code stack and maybe you don't have developer skills or you just want to be able to add AI functionality to your app faster, that's what AI Builder allows you to do. So there's a few built-in point and click, drag and drop type AI models that we can use for things like object recognition and forms processing. So we can just easily add that into the applications we're building on the Power Platform. And you might be thinking, okay, so this is a low code tool. So what does this mean? I'm a developer. Why would I want to use something like the Power Platform? Well, that's what's great about the Power Platform. It's really for everyone, from your citizen developers, right? The non, professional devs to the professional developers. So as a citizen developer, you're able to use something, say, like Power Apps to quickly solve a business form or application problem, right? With just some drag and drop tools. But we have this no cliffs, as you might have heard it called, extensibility model with the Power Platform as well that makes it really interesting for your professional developers. So I'm a professional developer myself. I come from a SharePoint development background. And I know one of the things I'm always trying to do is how can I make my life easier, not have to, keep coding the same thing over and over again, right? The same authentication or whatever it might be. So there's ways that just alone from a cost savings time that we as developers can take with the Power Platform and use to our advantage, but also we're able to extend it. So say a citizen developer built this great application, but they really needed to connect to our internal API to pull some data. Well, you as a developer could come in, create a custom connector for that. Maybe, with Azure API management, whatever it might be, so that now your end users, your citizen devs, can consume that in their Power Apps or their flows. So you can leverage your pro code tools like Visual Studio, VS Code, even GitHub, and add all of these extensions onto the Power Platform. Now, I mentioned I was going to show on that previous slide some synergies with the Power Platform and Teams platform capabilities. So first we're going to take a look at is tabs. So with tabs, as I mentioned, they're kind of just an iframe to host your UI. So that's a great integration from the Power Platform side of things with Power Apps and Power BI. So if you want to easily share amongst the members of your team or your particular channel a Power BI dashboard so they can see, say, like whatever it might be, your sales data, your trends, and all of that, you could add that in as a Power BI tab into your team's channel easily. It's a great integration point and one of the easiest ways to start integrating low-code technology and bringing business value to your teams. Same thing with Power Apps. If you have an application and you want your users to be able to, within a particular team, interact with that application without having to navigate away from Teams, that's a great extension point to be able to just add that as a tab in your Teams channel. As far as message actions go, this is relatively new features, but we're able to leverage Power Automate, that workflow tool of the Power Platform, to create message actions for teams. So I'll show an example of what a message action is here in a second. But essentially, say you have a message and you're chatting with someone, you'll notice that you'll have 3 dots that you can hover over in the message. Then we have these actions we can take, like, maybe you want to schedule a follow-up. So maybe someone said, hey, can you work on this particular project? And I want a reminder to take a look at that later on. Well, that's a message action. And that's something that you could use your pro dev skills and create a message action yourself that way, but we can leverage Power Automate as well to, for a selected message in Teams, run some kind of workflow process easily with a point and click interface with this low code tool. Now bots, that's where it becomes interesting. We know we can use like Azure Bot Framework, Q&A Maker to create bots for Teams, but if you want to do that in a low code fashion, this is a great integration point for Power Virtual Agents. So we're able to create low code conversational chatbots with PVA and use those within Teams. And then notifications is another great use case for Power Automate. So, ideally we want to kind of limit the amount of email bombing that we're, giving with our users for, say, certain workflow processes. So rather than with the email bombing, if you need to notify someone of something, like say maybe there's a pending task or they need to approve something or whatever it might be, we can send that notification via the Teams notification engine rather than sending an email. And we can do that with Power Automate. So along the lines of integration, another thing I wanted to point out here is the rich integration that we have with the Power Platform in GitHub. So we can do things with GitHub to help us manage our development lifecycle using some pre-configured templates with GitHub Actions for Power Platform. So you might, if you're worried about like how can I really develop and deploy apps at scale with the Power Platform, you can, because we have this nice rich interaction with GitHub and Azure DevOps and continuous integration and delivery. And again, just to really hit home on why, maybe from a developer side of things, you would want to leverage low-code tools to build and add integrations into Teams. We kind of estimate on average that it's going to take 74% less time to develop an app with Power Apps versus custom code. So it's going to save you time. So it's just going to help you meet your requirements and your demand faster. It's going to reduce your costs because it's not going to take as much time. You can build and deploy multiple applications faster. And you get the effortless integration that I was talking about thanks to those connectors and not having to reinvent the wheel on integrating with various services. And we do have a great security and governance and compliance story with the Power Platform. So we're able to do things like setting DLP policies, making sure that we don't have any PII or, make sure we're GDPR compliant and all of that with some of the governance and compliance capabilities that we have built in. All right, so I'll kind of set the stage here now about like what can Teams do itself as an application platform? What is this low code stuff? What is Power Platform? Now I want to talk about some new functionality that you maybe might have heard about that's making this integration story of Power Platform and Teams even stronger and easier. And that's something called Microsoft Dataverse for Teams. So really what it is, the short and sweet version here that I have is you take Teams, so it's Teams plus Power Apps, which is that low-code application development platform that allows you to create apps. So you can create these apps for your team members, plus Power Automate, which is going to allow you to add business logic for your apps and business process workflows for Teams, plus Power Virtual Agents, which allows you to build chatbots for your teams with no code. So it's a subset of all of this built specifically for Microsoft Teams. Now, why is this important? Because you might be wondering, like maybe you've already integrated some Power Platform like a Power App or Power Automate with your teams. So you're like, you might think, well, this is nothing new. What's new about it is with the Power Platform, we have to consider licensing for one. So there's certain things that we can do with the Power Platform that's included in some Office 365 or Dynamics license. So say if you're connecting with SharePoint data, right? That's something that we can do with our native license that includes SharePoint with no additional cost. But if you're wanting to do things like maybe connect to that Microsoft, formerly known as Common Data Service, now known as Microsoft Dataverse Database, or maybe connect to consume data from other APIs that aren't an existing connector, things like that. Well, then we had to get on the premium Power Apps or Power Automate licensing. So what this Microsoft Dataverse for Teams is solving is it's bundling up the Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents and including that within Teams for building and extending the Teams platform at no additional cost needed. So if you're wanting to accelerate your Teams platform and building business processes within Teams, you can bundle that up and use the Microsoft Dataverse for Teams and have at your disposal the power of Microsoft Dataverse, being a true relational database to store all of your records and consume information from APIs and all of that with no additional cost. So that's why it's so powerful. If we take a step back and talk more about Microsoft Dataverse for Teams. So, I told you just before what elements of the Power Platform it includes. But really all it is, so again, it's a low-code data platform specifically for Teams, and it's just a subset of the capabilities of the data platform behind Dynamics 365 and Power Platform, so that Microsoft Dataverse, formerly known as Common Data Service, right? So it's a subset of that specifically for usage within Teams. So it's going to give you storage, rich data types with those enterprise capability, and one-click solution deployment, which will be included for every Teams customer and governable by IT. What you're seeing here is an example of what the data table experience, so the table experience creation, looks like within Dataverse for Teams. So you can see it if you come from a SharePoint space at all, like I do, it actually kind of looks really similar to our modern SharePoint list that we see here. So, we're able to quickly with this create tables with, like I said, the rich data types. So we can have single-ended text and choice and images and all of that with this system. And one of the cool things, if you watch this, you notice we have the Teams App Store. So any solutions that you build within Dataverse for Teams are going to give you this rich one-click, single-click install capability for the solutions. So I can see this onboarding hub is actually a Power App that we built in Microsoft Dataverse for Teams that we're able to click and easily deploy into a particular team channel. So you're going to have this rich integration experience and seamless one-click deployment. Now, taking a look at the architecture here at a higher level of how this works when you're using Microsoft Dataverse for Teams. So we have Microsoft Teams here at the top. Then in Teams, you might have multiple teams, right? So you could have an HR team, an IT team, a marketing team, whatever that might be. So for each of those teams, if you want to utilize Microsoft Dataverse for Teams, you would have one environment per team. So take Team A here. So you have Power Apps, Power Automate, and Virtual Agents. You'll get a Microsoft Dataverse environment for that. Same thing for all of your other teams. You're going to get one environment per team, from A to infinity right there, up to 500. So that is one thing I want to point out. As of right now, there's a limit on how many teams, Microsoft Dataverse for Teams environments that we can have and how many teams we can use it in, and that is 500. So from 1 to 500 teams of your choice, you can have a Microsoft Dataverse for Teams environment so that you can start building applications in. And this is going to respect, another cool thing, the permissions of your team. So we see with Teams, we have owners, members, and guests, right? Well, when you provision and start using Microsoft Dataverse for Teams, say within Team A, it's going to automatically take and know who your owners, who your members and guests are, and they'll have the necessary access to the application that you're building within that team. So you don't have to manage that separately. So if you have, any of you on the call here have utilized, say, Power Apps before, and maybe you used SharePoint as a data source, right? The one of the problems that this is solving for us is, when you're using SharePoint, we had to consider, well, we need to give permission to the Power App itself to people manually, and then we have to make sure those people also have the necessary permissions to our backend data source in SharePoint. So by utilizing Dataverse for Teams, that's kind of all handled for us, and we don't have to do any of those extra steps from a permission standpoint. And all of this resting ultimately on top of the Dataverse database. So let's talk a little bit more about the security side of things. So, and we need to compare this Dataverse for Teams to the full-fledged Dataverse database system that the Power Platform offers. So when we look at security, we have some admin roles that we can define. So there's system admin and there's system customizer, right? So with those, we can utilize those admin roles with Dataverse for Teams and Dataverse, but the extra thing you'll be getting with Dataverse, the full version, is the ability to add additional service admin roles. So when you think about, okay, well, what's the difference? I kind of explained the difference between Dataverse and say SharePoint, but the difference between Dataverse for Teams and the full-fledged version of Dataverse is it's just a subset of the capabilities. So meaning you're not going to get a one-for-one of all the capabilities that you would get in the full-fledged version of Dataverse that you're going to get in Dataverse for Teams, because the scope is different. It's for more of your kind of like departmental type solutions that you might need for a particular team, really, at not maybe as large of a scale as something that you would build inside of the Dataverse. So things that you won't get in Dataverse for Teams that you will in the full-fledged version of Dataverse is things like field level security and hierarchical security, and the ability to have multiple business units for security. So that's one of the cool things about Dataverse from a security standpoint, is you can define security based off of organizational business units. So you get one of those for Dataverse for Teams, but you get unlimited ones that you can use from a security model with the full-fledged version of Dataverse. And then now let's look at the tables themselves. So tables are, the equivalent of, that's where our data is stored in Dataverse for Teams and Dataverse. So it's the same thing, like think of it as a SharePoint list if you come from a SharePoint background, or a SQL table if you come from a SQL background. These used to be called entities. They recently changed the name of these to tables. So again, Dataverse for Teams is a subset, so there are some things we're not going to be able to do that we can do in the full-fledged version of Dataverse, just things I like to point out. Dataverse for Teams, we're going to get features like your basic data types, so your single-line text, your choice, Boolean, things like that, and relational storage. That's a big benefit. So you might be wondering, well, why exactly would I use this Dataverse for Teams and not just a SharePoint list like I'm using now? Well, any SharePoint person is going to tell you that SharePoint, while it's great, it's not a relational database. So for building, kind of larger scale solutions, you're better off choosing some kind of relational database like SQL or Dataverse. So you're going to get relational storage with Dataverse for Teams and the full-fledged version of Dataverse. And file and image support as well. So if you've ever tried to build an application in Power Apps in SharePoint that leverages, like has some kind of file upload capability, it's kind of a pain to implement that, but it's really easy with Dataverse for Teams to have that file and image integration. You'll be able to find, filter, and sort, but things you won't have is mobile offline, advanced and relevance search, non-relational storage, and advanced data types. So those, if you need those features or functionality, you need a full-fledged version of Dataverse. And, like I said, since I'm a developer, one of the things that really is exciting to me about this new Microsoft Dataverse for Teams functionality is the fact that they've announced some richer integration with Azure API management so that we can consume Azure API management connectors within our Microsoft Dataverse for Teams applications at no additional cost as well. So this is going to unlock and give you the ability to create custom connectors within Azure API management and push those to your dedicated Power Platform environments and consume those within Power Apps and Teams at no additional licensing costs. This is something that if you weren't using Dataverse for Teams, that you would have to pay extra for, one of those premium licensing. So this is just going to give you another, great extension points where you can extend the applications you're building. And just a couple more slides, and then I'm going to switch over to some demo here. So again, just a summary of this whole Microsoft Dataverse for Teams versus Dataverse. So again, Microsoft Dataverse for Teams, this is no additional cost for Teams customers. So pretty much almost any license, so your E3s, your Business Premium that include Teams, you're going to get this functionality. And it's going to support high volume records. So you can have up to 1 million records in these Dataverse tables, for each environment, for each team out of the box. And of course, you can leverage all the existing Power Platform capabilities and connectors as well. And like I said, that Azure API management connector at no additional cost, that's rolling out now. But if you need things like that role-based access control, business process flows, offline capability, things like that, then that's when you would want to upgrade to the standalone Power Apps and full-fledged Dataverse capabilities. And the upgrade path for that they're working on is going to eventually be pretty seamless to upgrade an app that you built, say, in Dataverse for Teams to the full-fledged version. All right, so did a lot of talking. Let's switch over to some demos now. First, I want to talk about, before I get into the Dataverse for Teams stuff, let's talk about, even if you're not using Dataverse for Teams, maybe you've already built a Power App. Let's start with Power Apps. Maybe you've already built something. You just want to integrate that into your Teams environment, right? Let's take a look at that side of the coin first, and then we'll go into some of the Dataverse for Teams functionality. So if I've already built an app, say like this desk booking application, so it's a pretty straightforward Power App where we can log in and we can reserve a desk for a day if we want to go back to the office and respect social distancing. So I can come in, I can book, I can go and look on my calendar, find the day that I want to book a desk for and the time slot. Continue, can select the desk that I want, see where it is on the map, get a confirmation, make sure everything looks good, confirm, and now I have my desk reservation, right? Pretty straightforward. Now, if I want to use this in Teams, so what if I wanted to, say, for example, have this desk reservation app show here on the left rail within Teams? Well, it's something that I can do out of the box here pretty easily. So again, this is like something that, in this case, for the desk booking, this data source is SharePoint. So if it's something not within Dataverse, I can do this by going to the make.powerapps.com portal, clicking on the Apps tab here, and clicking on the app that I want to embed within Teams, and selecting Add to Teams. So this is going to open up this panel on the right-hand side, and I'm able to click Download App. And this is going to produce a package that Teams expects for how you upload applications. So the applications that you deploy in the Teams App Store are really just a manifest file, an icon, and a logo. That's really as simple as it is. So that's what this zip file is doing, is it's producing those assets for me. It's creating a manifest file with the link to this particular Power App and packaging that up as a Teams application. So now all I have to do, since that created that zip file for me, is go to my Teams instance, select the Apps tab. This will take me to the Teams app screen, and I can click Upload a Custom App. And I have a few options here. So this is something to consider is, again, I mentioned that Teams has a few different audiences. There's the personal aspect and then the collaborative aspect of Teams. So if you select Upload for me or my Teams, that's kind of more of like a personal application approach. But if you select Upload for, and that's going to have the name of your tenant, that's a shared collaborative tenant-wide, what they call it, application. So that's great for if there's something that you want, an application that you want to have deployed to all of your employees, or maybe even just a subset of those. You can add that here as a tenant application, and you can use things in the Teams Admin Center called setup policies to make that app pinned for a subset or all of your users here on the left rail. So you can select the option you want and then just browse to that zip file, click open, and that's going to add in the application into the Teams App Store. And you can see I've actually already did that. So this built for my tenant name section are all the custom apps that I have deployed. So I can see that desk booking application, and it looks just like all of these native apps that we're seeing. So I can click on it, and I can see I can open it, or I can even add to a team. So I've actually already did that and pinned this to the left rail. So if I click these three dots, I can see there's my desk booking application that I have on the left rail, and I'm able to use and consume this within Teams. So again, if you're already leveraging and have already built some Power Apps and you want to start integrating within Teams, this is a great way. And of course, we always have that ability if we dive into a specific team to go into a team and go to a particular channel, and we can add those in as tabs by clicking on the plus. And we have a shortcut for Power Apps. So if we're wanting to integrate Power Apps in here, we can click the Power Apps tab, and it's going to give us a list of all the different Power Apps that we have access to so that we can select one. So I can, let's see, we'll find this one, for example, and just click Save. And this is the embedded tab experience that we talked about earlier for a Power App. So we can go into a particular channel and move around across the tabs. So this is, again, like I said, good for Power Apps, but also Power BI. So if we click that button again, you see there's a Power BI tile, so we can integrate our Power BI reports easily within this as well. So same thing, it's going to give us a list of all of the Power BI reports that we have access to and kind of by their workspaces and all of that. So I can take, for example, this COVID tracker and click Save, and that will embed this Power BI tab into my Teams environment so I can easily see that in this particular channel. So those are the ways with the out of the box. Now let's talk about, okay, what about this Microsoft Dataverse for Teams stuff? How can we start using that? So with Dataverse for Teams, that's specifically meant for Teams. So the first thing you want to know is, what I just showed you here, this is a standalone Power App. So I can use this Power App on my mobile device in the Power Apps app. I can embed this in the SharePoint site if I wanted to. I can link to it from, a website, whatever it might be. Or I can embed it in Teams. I have multiple ways that I can get to this particular app. But when we're using Dataverse for Teams, we only have one way to get to that, and that's through Teams, because this is meant just for enabling your Teams applications. So just know that caveat from the start when you're starting to use this is that you're only going to be able to interact with this via the Teams web, desktop, or mobile application, right? So with that in mind, to create these either Power Apps or Power Automate workflows or virtual agents, you're going to do that within Teams itself. So what you'll do is you'll click these three dots on the left rail, and you'll need to first install the Power Apps, the Power Automate, and the Power Virtual Agents applications into Teams so that you can use those to build those solutions. So I can use this Find an App, and I can search for Power, for example, and I'll see the three different Power Apps application or Power Platform applications here. So virtual agents, Power Apps, and Power BI. And you would just click that, and that's going to install the personal application for you so that you can open those to start using. So I've obviously already did that. So let's start with Power Apps, I guess. So we'll click on that. It's going to open up a fully baked Power Apps editor with inside of Teams. So we'll have the home screen where we can see the recent applications we built within Dataverse for Teams. And then on build, this is where it's going to list out. So remember how I mentioned when you build these solutions in Power Apps with Dataverse for Teams, it's per team. You're going to get an environment for each team that you build this in. So you have to first choose what team this app is for. So that's what we're seeing here on the left-hand side is these are all of the different teams that you have created Power Apps for. So for example, if I click on crisis information, I can see that I have two different things I actually have. So we have two tabs that we'll need to look out for. We have built by this team and we have installed apps. So installed apps, that means you can actually package up. So first of all, there's some templates for Power Apps in Dataverse for Teams that are included. So if you're using those templates, those will show up here in the installed apps. So for example, if I go to my Power Addicts team, I'm using this employee ideas installed app. So those will show on this tab, and you can, any applications that you have in the Teams App Store that you've used and deployed as installed apps will show there. Built by this team are applications that you've built yourself, and those are going to show up here. So I can see that I have this Swag Manager Canvas app and a chatbot that I built for this particular channel. And if I click all, so we're going to see like the table. So that's where the data itself is stored. So for this particular solution, I only have one table called products. And we can click on that. We can see how easy it is to view and manage your tables when you dive into a particular data source within Dataverse for Teams. So I can see we have different sections here. We have columns, relationships, and views. So I've already built this table called products. So for columns, I can see all of the different columns that I have created for this. So I have like a status and a size and a product name. Then we can even have different views. So just like, again, if you come from a SharePoint background, we can create custom views. We're able to do that here within Dataverse for Teams as well. So by default, I didn't create any of these views. These were created for me. So you can have active and inactive products and lookups and all of that. All right, so and if I want to edit the data and see that here, all I have to do is click this Edit Data button. And that's going to take me to where I can see the information, the actual data stored. So I only have one item. And I can inline, kind of similar to like if I was typing in an Excel spreadsheet, I could add my data and just tab over and see this, for example, is a drop down. So that's how a drop down will look. And edit my data, close that out, and it's auto saving that in the background, right? I could even use this view to add new columns to my database or my table. So I can give the column a name. So maybe just in stock, if it's in stock or not. So if I click the drop down, these are all the data types that we have right now at Dataverse for Teams out of the box. So we can have text, Booleans, choice, lookups, decimals, dates, numbers, all of this. So you can see here. A couple ones that are pretty cool is this email, URL, and phone. So this is something traditionally, say if you're using like SharePoint as a data source, you would have had to have custom kind of coded with some formulas and Power Apps, some conditional logic to force your data types to be like an email, a URL, or a phone. With these data types in Dataverse for Teams, we don't have to do that. It handles the logic for us. So when we consume this in an application, if someone, types in an email address in the phone field, it will automatically prompt them and let them know that, hey, we expect a phone number in here. Okay. So for in stock, maybe this is just a yes, no, like a Boolean. And you see when we select the yes, no data type, we have the ability to customize it here. So, so we have like, do you want it to be yes, no, or do you want it to be true or false? So we have the ability here to define that. And then we can choose the default value, so no or yes. So I'm going to click create on that, and that adds my column real time here into my table. And now I can update the data. So if I click into that, I can see a toggle, and I can toggle that to yes or no, and just click close, and now my database is updated. Okay. So pretty cool. You'll see on the build tab here as well, it's separating out by the type of assets that you might want to use and consume. So apps are going to be your Power Apps. So you click that, it's going to show all the apps there. Chatbots are those Power Virtual Agents chatbots. Flows or any workflows with Power Automate that you built. And then you can click that to see all of your tables. And then other being if you have connection references or environment variables. So those are different sections we have. Now let's talk about how do we actually create an app in here. So you see we have this create an app tab. Let's look at what this experience looks like. So if I click that, first thing it's going to do is, again, ask me, well, what team is this app for? So you're going to have a drop down, and you're going to see all the different teams that you have available to us. So for example, I have this super awesome team. So if I want to create a Power App for that, I can click the team, click create, and it's going to kind of go through the setup process here. And this can take a little bit of a minute to run through that process there. But this is going to open up the Power Apps editor once it finishes within Teams so that we can build a new application. And while that's loading, I see, I guess I'll go ahead and address a question that I saw pop up in the chat. That desk booking app, they're asking if it's available to download and customize. That actually is. So on my YouTube, I have a video I do a video series called Template Tuesdays. And so each Tuesday, I create a new Power Platform template that's available to download and customize. So you can find that on my YouTube. You can also go to github.com, whack April Dunham, and go to the Power Apps repository. And all of these applications are available here. So there's that desk reservation template. So you can download this zip file, which is that application, and import that into your environment and customize it however you need. So yep, that is available. Okay, so back to this though, the Dataverse creating the Power App. So first thing when it loads in the Power Apps editor is we're going to give our application a name. So maybe I want to create an app for task management. So I'll give that a name there and click Save. And you see one of the cool things, it's kind of creating a template for us out of the box. And of course, we can completely customize this however we need to, but it's going to give you like a gallery on the left where you can have your list of items from your database. And then on the right, it's going to give you a form so that you can click on one of these items, one of these records, and it will populate the form. Or you can use this to add a new record. So at this point, we just have a blank app, but we don't have any data for it. So if we want to create a new table in Dataverse Routines, we can select this Create New Table button. And now we just give the table a name. So this might be just task, right? Since this is a task management application. Click Create. And this will take us to that screen we were kind of looking at earlier where we can build out our table and fill out the data. So for a task, I might need the task name. And let's see what else. I might need a due date, right? So I can click due date, select my type, that'll be a date, create. And you see how fast it is to set up a table and populate it with data here. So I can have assigned to, click create. So we'll just keep it simple like that. So those are the 3 fields I want. So I can have, create demo, maybe that's due. I can use my date picker, right? And then that should be assigned to me, whatever it may be. So that's, again, it's saving in the background. So I can click close. This is going to save my data and how I've configured my database and add that in as a database within my application, right? And at the same time, we can always pull data from other data sources as well. So we have this connectors functionality. So, maybe I did need to consume some data from SharePoint. That's no problem. We can do that as well. We can select the SharePoint connector, point to the site that we want to pull data from, and we can get that within our app too. So really simple to set up, and we can even preview the application live. So I can select an item from here, I can select new record, and that's going to pop up the form. It's behaving a little weird for me right now. The demo gods aren't in my favor. So I know I'm running low on time here, but let's take a look at the Power Automate side of things too. I think there was a webinar about this, so I won't harp on it too much. But this is where, say you wanted to use those messaging extensions that I was talking about, Power Automate, this app is a great way to do that. There's all of these templates that you can start out with, which are pretty cool. So for example, there's this one template for create a work item from a message. That's really neat. So that's going to create a work item in Azure DevOps. Another one here, you see I have this one for schedule one-on-one. So, say you're in a Teams chat with someone and they're like, hey, I want to meet with you about this particular topic. Well, you can have a flow in Power Automate, like what we're seeing here, that will give you an actionable message action there that will create a task for you, actually create a Teams meeting and schedule an event right from there. So that's what's happening with this flow. But let's just see how it actually works. So I've built that out, and say I'm chatting with David here, and he said something about, hey, I want to meet about something. So to consume that flow, we can click these dots next to the message, go to more actions, and these are those message extensions, those message actions that I was talking about. So you can see there's that schedule one-on-one flow that we just looked at. So if I click on that, this is going to give me a actionable card where I can fill in some additional information. So, okay, I know David wants to meet, so what's the subject? So maybe it's to discuss widgets, because he's talking about widgets there. They can give a few more details, whatever it might be. And then I can even select the date. So maybe I want to have that on Monday, not in the AM, like, here we go, we'll select a reasonable time and submit. So that flow now is going to kick off and schedule that event for me. So I didn't have to bother, navigating away from Teams, opening up my Outlook, scheduling that event. I was able to do that all in line directly from Teams with that actionable message, thanks to Power Automate. And as you can see, now if I click on my Teams calendar and navigate to next week, there is that Teams meeting to discuss widgets. I can see all the details there. So lots of great integration. And then the last one being Power Virtual Agents. Don't really have time to go through that in super detail, but it's very, very simple. One of the things I love about Power Virtual Agents is just how easy it is to get started here. Again, similar to how we saw with the Power App, you're going to select the team that you want to use this in, and it's going to set up a Power Virtual Agent bot for you. Creating these bots is really similar if you've leveraged Power Automate or Power Apps, kind of really similar interface, very, point and click. So we'll give our bot a name. So maybe this is a, we'll call it question bot. We'll keep it simple. And you can even define different languages. So you can have bots in different languages to meet your needs there. This is going to go through and create the bot, and it even gives you some sample information so that you can test it out and have really a working bot with some sample information that you can just customize as well. So this is really good, again, for situations where you just need kind of like a conversational thing. So maybe you get asked all the time, well, when are our company vacation days, or what are our hours, things like that. That's a great use case for a bot where you can just have those answers, those questions that you might be asked, and then pair those up with some answers, right? So that's something that this PVA enables you to do. And you can even test this real time here. So, you're going to start with a topic. So if you go to topics here, these are the preloaded topics I was talking about. So you might have a topic about hours, for example. So we can click on this particular topic. And with the topic, you have to define, well, what are your trigger phrases? So if this topic is about hours, people might ask, well, when are you closed? When are you open? Store hours, daily open hours. Those might be the things that they trigger off of. And then you just have to give it, well, for that, here are our options. Just so you can see it working real time, here's how we can test it in here. So I can say, when are you closed? Send that to the bot, and it will reply here. There you go. I'm happy to help, and it gives the store hours for that particular office, right? So pretty simple to set up, fairly straightforward. We can customize these topics, and even have rich analytics about, like how often did people, ask this particular topic with, some Power BI dashboards in the background that we can use as well. So pretty cool capability that we have here. We can even have, customized greetings. So if someone says hello, we can have a customized message about like, hey, welcome to the store hours bot, or whatever it might be, and customize what shows there. So this authoring canvas, if you take a look at that, that's where you would choose the messages. So here are trigger phrases, right? So we can say hello, hi sir, hi madam, whatever it might be. And then here are the messages. So at that point, when someone says hello, it's going to say, hi, I'm a virtual agent, or we can change this. So we can just see like, hey there. And that's how easy we can change the message that shows in a response to what they ask, right? So all we have to do is save. That's going to save that, and hopefully that's pretty fast. Now if I type hello in my test here, it's going to refresh my little test panel. I type hello, click send, and that's going to reply back. There you go. So we customize that with, hey there, I'm your virtual agent, and it sent all of those messages one by one. So it's that easy to set up and build a chatbot with Power Virtual Agents. All right, that's about all that I had. Some resources I want to leave you with. There's a great overview on Dataverse for Teams and App in a Day. So if you are new to the Power Platform and Power Apps and want to learn how you can use that to build applications for Teams, definitely encourage you to first start with a guided learning material and then maybe attend one of the free App in a Day workshops to get up to speed on that. Right. And yeah, just want to leave a little time if we have it for questions, if there's any.
Thanks for a great presentation, April. Yes, now we will start the questions and answers part, and should you wish to ask a question, please type it into the questions window now. April, there was one question there that just kind of got skipped over. It was, does uploading a tenant app require admin approval?
Great question. Yes, sorry, I missed that one. It does. So you have to have the admin access to be able to upload those applications as tenant applications. So you wouldn't even see if you didn't have the permissions in the app section here. You wouldn't see this option for upload for your tenant name unless you have the necessary permissions, and that has to be configured in the Teams Admin Center with security who has access to upload those tenant applications.
Brilliant. April, that's the only question outstanding. So with that, I will say on behalf of the ESPC community, thank you for taking the time today to complete this webinar. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Super. Thank you, April. Okay, everybody, just bear with me here as I get back to my own screen. Okay, that is the end of today's webinar. Don't forget, this is Teams Week, and we have more webinars upcoming tomorrow. Check out sharepointeurope.com for full details. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be added to the Resource Center, where you'll be notified by email when it is available. Again, a big thank you to our webinar presenter today, that's April Dunham, and thank you for joining us today. Take care and goodbye.